Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here in Warzone Season 2 Reloaded, we obviously saw several new weapon buffs and nerfs, and so with that today, wanted to go through and break down the new top 10 best loadouts you want to be running in-game, varying from all sorts of different play styles, whether you're looking for some close range, some long range, some sniping, and some sniper support action, so a little bit of something here for everyone. First up though, let's talk perks and equipment, get this out of the way real quick. So typically for my tactical here, I'm always either running stims or smokes. I always kind of bounce back and forth with these depending on what I'm playing. Both are fantastic in my opinion. For lethals, again, kind of bouncing back and forth. On resurgence, I'm always wanting to use knives for the instant finishes. You get those quick pings on the radar, of course. That said, I mean, blast traps have had a pretty strong resurgence as of late, no pun intended. They're pretty OP. You know, impact, semtexes, frags all have their place as well if you're more of an explosive type. So you really have a lot to choose from there. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer. It just depends a little bit more on your play style. For perks, at the time that I'm recording this, Mountaineer still doesn't work. Now, hopefully, maybe when this video is live, it'll be fixed and updated. If we've covered it in an update video, of course, that'll be the, official word there. But that said, Survivor, still a fantastic option in perk 1. You get regen quicker, and that's just insanely clutch, right? Super important. Their health regen begins after 3 seconds. I'm still rocking Sprinter a ton in perk 2 for the infinite tack sprint, just the fastest possible movement there, basically. And then Gung Ho in perk 3, reload while tack sprinting, so I can basically always reload no matter the situation. Plus, reduce penalties when you are reloading or using equipment as well. So very aggressive perk setup there. Typically, I'm running Overkill as a wild card here, although on a few loadouts, I'll be using Gunfighter, and we'll talk about those when we get to them. But now we can just focus on the weapons for the remainder of this video. Starting first with a really fun sniper loadout, in my opinion, the LR762 paired with the Cypher. The Cypher actually got some nice buffs with Season 2 Reloaded, and it works great as like a standard primary rifle or as sniper support here. So you can sort of go back and forth. I'll have a different primary loadout for it a bit later on in the video, but initially here with the Cypher, iron sight build, I think they're super clean, and this is a very aggressive loadout to pair perfectly with the sniper. So base suppressor, just gonna keep me off the radar. Very straightforward, right? Long barrel, you want the best possible range here. 64 is overkill as can be, but it's gonna be fantastic for sniper support. There's really not a situation where you're gonna use this where it's gonna be out of range given this loadout and this specific setup here. I also go for the Ranger foregrip, helping out with some mobility and then some control, so the weapon is easier and it's faster. That's a win-win. Extended 2 is going to be 60 here. That works fine for all squad sizes. Then the balanced stock just gives me even more movement benefits. Base movement, strafe, ADS, strafe, so it's just more aggressive overall. You pair this with something like the LR762, and I mean, you're set. Here, it's a pretty straightforward setup. Suppressor keeps me off the radar, of course. Long barrel here is going to extend our one-shot headshot range out to 85 meters. I also personally like extended mag 1 here just so I don't have to reload as often, although I know a lot of players like fast mag 2 because you're only missing 1 bullet here, but you also get a faster ADS. You pair this and the quick draw grip together, which also helps out with ADS speed, and you end up with a 511 ADS, which is pretty good considering this is a heavy sniper by all other metrics, right? And then also I do go for overpressured ammo, extends that velocity out to over 1,000, so you don't really have to worry about bullet drop or bullet lead. It's just going to be super straightforward there. So this is a fantastic sniper choice just in general, by far one of my favorites. Loadout 2 here, another pretty fun one. We got the AMES, super straightforward and easy to use rifle paired with the PPSH, which is just a melt machine up close, although a little bit awkward with some of the attachments here. For the AMES though, I mean, like I said, this thing is straightforward. It is easy to use, low recoil, low visual recoil, very aggressive as well, and it's got a pretty good TTK over range. For the optic here, it's really a matter of preference. I like the Willis 3 times a lot. I also like the 2 times. I also know a lot of players have been using some of the red dots, even some of like the Volsky reflex. I don't even know how to say that, but there's been a bunch of different optics floating around. It really is a preference thing at the end of the day. Use whatever one you're comfortable with here. Suppressor keeps me off the radar. Don't really feel the need for a compensator with this level of control, but if you needed it, feel free to run that. Reinforced barrel extends our damage range out to almost 56 meters, and we get a 931 velocity, so that's feeling fantastic. Ranger foregrip, some control, some mobility as well. As mentioned, it's an aggressive rifle. Might as well play into that some, of course. Then extended 2, 60 rounder. It'll work with this rate of fire. It's a little bit faster, but that'll still be sufficient for all squad sizes here. And then with the PPSH, you really just got to focus on some control here. That's why I rock the compensator. Just makes it easy to use, especially because I am using the iron sight build here. Long barrel gives us over a 20 meter effective damage range. You just don't see that all that often on SMGs, so that's obviously a great choice there. And a 530 velocity is going to work fine for all the realistic fights we're getting into with this thing. Ranger foregrip, mobility, and control yet again. Extended 2 is only 55. It's over almost 1,000 RPM, so 952 here. You're going to burn through ammo, but that's the best you have, so you're going to have to make it work. You'll get used to it the more you use it, of course. Then unfortunately, the stocks and the rear grips being combined, we've talked about this before, just makes for kind of an awkward setup. This is going to be a what do you value the most? For me, it's typically ADS speed. So that's why I go for the quick draw stock. I have a fast ADS and a decently fast sprint to fire. That said, something like a combat stock makes an even faster sprint to fire. Very, very good. Ergonomic stock is going to give you fast ADS speed and like tack sprint and whatnot there. Balance stock is going to give you good movement too. So depending on if you value one of those versus the other more, you might want to mess around and see which one feels the best for you. But for me, it's going to be quick draw stock. I really do like the feel of that at the end of the day. Next up here, we've got a TTK beast of a loadout, the Goblin and the Kompakt. Kompakt actually got buffed. The Goblin, we all know, is crazy when it comes to its TTK. If you can use this thing in semi-auto, if you're good with these style of weapons and accurately spam as fast as possible, very few guns are going to be able to actually match the Goblin's stats. It's just a much higher skill gap than most of what you'll see on the list here today. Again, I like the Willis 3 times. If there's a different optic you prefer more, of course, feel free to run that. Basic suppressor, again, if you want even added control, even more control on there, feel free to run the compensator. I don't find it to be super necessary. This is pretty easy to use even when you are spamming if you're within the appropriate ranges, right? Reinforced barrel, some range, some velocity, so almost a 55-meter effective range, 943 velocity, both going to be fantastic for all types of fights you're getting into. Extended 2 is a 50-rounder, and that's going to work fine even when we have rapid fire on here, which, keep in mind, doesn't actually hurt the damage or the range like it does on full auto guns. Only hurts the control, and that's not a huge deal as mentioned. So you end up basically with a weapon that you spam at your own rate. Like the faster the better, the quicker the TTK, but you know just how fast you're going to burn through that ammo, so you don't have to worry too much about the DPM or anything there. This thing's going to melt if you are good with semi-auto guns and you can stay on target. And then close range with the Kompakt, I mean, this thing, it just shreds. That's the easiest way to put it. It's going to melt in the first damage range. Compensator, you definitely want here. There is noticeable recoil on this thing, and the bullets really matter here a lot, so that's going to make things easier there. Ranger foregrip makes it easier and a little bit faster. Extended 3 is only a 60 here, and we have a 1091 RPM, so even with 60, the DPM is a little bit iffy, but that's the max. You're going to have to learn to live with it, and when you do land shots, you're going to be fine anyways. You can reload when everyone's knocked, right? Ergonomic rear grip helps out with our ADS and our slide to fire, so if you do slide a lot in your gameplay, that's going to make this even more aggressive. And then recoil springs, again, just makes the weapon even more accurate and easy to use. So these two combined means you are going to fry everyone. Next up, we have another sniper setup. This time it is the Frostline and the KSV. The KSV is a fantastic sniper support sort of complementary setup here that I really enjoy, and the Frostline is a great, more aggressive sniping option. So here the setup's going to be very similar to what we were running on the LR762, suppressor to stay off the radar. Long barrel here, we get a 73-meter one-shot effective headshot. So that's going to still be plenty viable, especially on Resurgence, but even some on big map as well if you're playing a tad bit more aggressive here. Same thing applies. If you want the extra ammo, go for extended mag. If you really want that faster ADS and whatnot, though, fast mag is going to be a good choice there too, helping out alongside quick draw riser. You get a 461 for one less bullet. That's going to be pretty aggressive if that's sort of your thing. I also go for overpressured ammo here. Velocity is 1012, so we're chilling with that. That's going to be great for bullet drop and bullet lead, especially within that one-shot effective damage range there. So the Frostline, a great sniping alternative that's a bit faster than the LR762. Then the KSV just works so good for sniper support. It's got a great mid-range stat and a great mid-range TTK here. I personally am okay with the irons. If you wanted to switch these out, you could switch out a muzzle or a rear grip for these. The other three I think are pretty important, but if you really needed a red dot or something, feel free to switch it up, depending on your level of comfortability here. I like the suppressor though. Compensator could also work if you want some added control. Long barrel, super important, gives us nearly a 20-meter effective damage range there. Ranger foregrip for some added mobility and some added control here, so win-win for an SMG setup. Extended 250 works fine at this rate of fire. 800, it'll be just okay. And then also ergonomic rear grip, I really like the feel of here too for the better ADS and slide to fire. This though could also be replaced with a stock like balanced for better mobility, recoil springs if you wanted to, and optic as mentioned. Several different ways to build this out with just 5 attachments. All of them are going to be very complimentary though of a sniper. And we got a bit of an interesting combination here, the BAL-27 and the C9. You may recall they actually ended up updating a lot of the MW3 and MW2 guns, making them easier to use with less visual shake, bob and stuff there. So weapons like this are going to be a lot more consistent now, and the BAL has a great TTK through and through, especially if you can control it. This setup is particularly easy to do so in my opinion. It is an iron sight build here, pretty aggressive but also so lethal. So Spirit Fire Suppressor helps helps out the range and the velocity. The Crown H3 barrel is also going to stack on that even more. And then we got high grain ammo on here, which stacks on that too. So we end up with nearly a 50-meter effective damage range and over 1,000 velocity. That works great for all types of engagements, and the iron sights are so clean and the recoil is easy to use that you can stay on target at those distances too. Skeletal vertical grip or any vertical underbarrel here will help out with the control, just making it a tad bit easier. And then the 60 round mag, you definitely want this because after those first 4 shots, when the fire rate does speed up, you burn through ammo. So 60 of course is going to be very, very important there. And then the C9 setup here is still going to be a fantastic option. It was slightly nerfed here with the ranges and whatnot, but it's still going to be a great close range choice. It's got great movement and mobility there. Was that a random playlist update? What was that? Anyways, we got compensator on here, makes the gun easier to use. Ranger foregrip for better control and a tad bit better mobility. Of course, extended 250 will work fine with the 732 RPM, no real concern there. Then I double up on ergonomic and balance, so we get a better slide to fire and ADS, better general movement, better strafe on there as well. It's just such an aggressive build. I love the feel of it. It is a ton of fun to rock. By the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons and setups here today, if you enjoy the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you're in the know for all things going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and help get us one step closer to reaching 1 million subscribers. Next up, another pretty fun combo, the Krig, which is just a very reliable rifle. It's got a bit of a different feel from others, so it takes some getting used to, but it kills quick and it's got great range. We paired this with the max speed Superi. The TTK isn't insane, but the movement is. So if you want to fly around the map, this is the SMG for you. As far as the Krig setup goes, with just 5 attachments, we really just want to focus on control and making the gun easy because that's kind of what it lacks versus other rifles. So Jason Armory 2 times for me for the optic, compensator straight up for better vertical control. I also go with the vertical foregrip, which gives me max horizontal control. So I'm getting a lot of recoil back, or recoil control back out of this setup here. So it'll be a lot easier to use, a little bit more straightforward. Reinforced barrel, 60 meter effective damage range, 978 velocities, working fine for all types of fights. Then extended 2 here is 70. That's more than enough, right? So nice, that's an extra large extended mag 2 on there. For this Superi build, we are just focused mainly on mobility here. So high grain ammo is essentially the only attachment. I guess high grain and the extended mag are the only attachments not focused on mobility. Extending our damage range out is going to be important because after the effective damage range, the TTK drops off very fast. But within that effective damage range, it's competitive. And then you got the mobility here, and it's insane. The short barrel on here helps out with your general sprint to fire, your ADS, and your movement speed. Jack Slash gives you better movement speed and some better control. 40 rounder as mentioned. And then Rescue 9 stock, better movement speed, sprint speed as well. This thing flies. It is so much fun to use. Kind of surprised they didn't nerf the speeds here. Very happy that they didn't though. Hey everyone, real quick, just wanted to give a shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. If you are trying to stay energized, hydrated, focused, G Fuel has you covered in all areas. They've got the brand new hydration and focus sticks, which I gotta say are absolutely phenomenal. They of course have a bunch of different flavors for your standard energy formula and loads to choose from for their cans as well. So they got you covered on all fronts if you're looking to stay hydrated, energized, focused, whether you're gaming, doing work, school, whatever the case is. If you ever want to grab anything at all from the G Fuel site, be sure to throw in code Immortal at checkout. That'll help save you some money on your order. Link for that will be down in the description below. Loadout number 7 here is a bit more of an experimental loadout and also a mention to the TR2 because we haven't discussed this in a loadout video yet, and I wanted to make sure I gave you guys a setup for this. I've seen some questions about it so far. It's a decent marksman. It's not going to be anything crazy, but again, we haven't covered it. I want to make sure I get the info out for you guys. So on the TR2 here, it's going to be a pretty basic 5 attachment setup for a semi-auto. Willis 3 times, just simply for comfortability for me. Use whatever optic you want. Compensator because there is some noticeable recoil when you're spamming this fast, so that's something to just be weary of, right? Reinforced barrel helping out with range and velocity, 57 meter range, and then also 1100 velocity. The hit scan feel of this is pretty insane, all things considered. Lightweight foregrip helps out with idle swipe. That's very important on semi-auto guns, especially when you're trying to spam, just making it a little bit easier, right? And then extended 2, 40 rounder works fine because you're kind of controlling the rate at which you're spamming this. So not the craziest marksman, but I wanted to make sure we got some coverage on it. And I paired this with the Saug, which is kind of an underrated SMG. It's got a decent TTK. It's not like super standoutish, but it's competitive enough throughout. Here, reinforced barrel, some range, some velocity. If you wanted to go all in on long barrel, you could do that as well. You'll get an even better range, just over 13 meters, which isn't anything too crazy, but it'll work, right? Extended 2 here, going to be a 55 with a 909 RPM. That's all right. It could be larger, but again, it's the biggest, so you kind of got to learn to live with it. Ergonomic and balanced stock here for like max mobility. I really like the feel of slide to fire, ADS, general movement, strafe, everything like that. Then also recoil springs, just some vertical and some horizontal control is never a bad thing here, as opposed to the compensator or like Ranger, which would just be one versus the other. So a bit of a different setup, but also one that does fry up close. Like, it's a pretty fun SMG that hasn't had too much coverage up until this point. Now, loadout number 8, we do have a Gunfighter build here, focusing on the Model L with this. From all my Gunfighter builds, I don't really care too much about the secondary. I'm typically going to a buy station, buying an SMG or picking one up off the ground or something like that. So I initially just start out with the Sear 9mm, iron sight, suppressor, long barrel, vertical foregrip, and extended 1. Like, those are the 5 default attachments that it's going to let you unlock anyways. So might as well rock them all, right? We're focused on the Model L though. They nerfed this slightly with its damage and its ranges, but if you're still able to hit upper body shots, it's going to be a competitive rifle, and it's very easy to use, especially with 8 attachments on here. So again, use whatever optic you want. I like the suppressor in this case, especially because we get control elsewhere. We don't really have to worry about a compensator. Reinforced barrel, we have 1,000 velocity, which is fantastic without having to use overpressured or anything. And then a 54-meter effective damage range is great as well. Ranger foregrip, some control, but also some mobility, so at least stays a little bit more aggressive. Extended 250 with this fire rate's going to work just fine. And then might as well get some better ADS out of here. If you're sliding around and going into the ADS, that helps too. Just a little bit more aggressive. Balanced stock, I like the mobility benefits of too, just when you're strafing and everything. And then recoil springs here. Free control. Why not? So it makes the gun a lot easier to use. This is the Warrior's Blood blueprint, which has like the STG iron sights almost. So if you wanted to drop an optic, you could. I don't really feel the need for a laser in most cases, but something to take note of as well if you're interested. Now, I mentioned earlier we'd talk about a full-on regular primary Cypher build, and it works great for this too if you want to pair this with an SMG like I do. For instance, the Striker, which has an insane range and a really competitive TTK for being an MW3 SMG. On the Striker build here, I don't like the irons, so I go for a slate reflector. Use whatever scope or optic you want here if you're not a fan of the irons. Sonic suppressor extends out that range and that velocity. The recon long barrel does as well, so we end up with a 13-meter, almost 14-meter effective damage range and a 667 velocity that's going to work fine. Jack slash, some movement, but also some control, so it's a little bit more aggressive and easier. And then just a 60-round extended mag. Very straightforward setup here, but the gun itself is just good at its core, which is nice to see. For this Cypher build, it's going to be similar to our other one, just with an optic. I like the Kepler red dot. I've also been messing around with the reflexes a little bit too, but for long range, again, whatever optic you want. Suppressor, I find this gun pretty easy to use. Long barrel on here gives us a 64-meter effective damage range. If you wanted reinforced for some velocity as well, you're still at a 55-meter effective range, so that would work good there. Ranger foregrip on here, control and mobility, and then extended 2 yet again with that 60-rounder works just fine here. So this is kind of the do-it-all rifle right now. And then lastly, one more Gunfighter build here on the AK. This thing is just insane. You just really have to go all in on control here. So luckily with 8 attachments, we can really focus on that. If you can hit shots with this thing, it's gonna absolutely fry, right? Here, Jason Armory 2 times, whatever optic you want. Compensator, straight up better control. Reinforced barrel, some range and velocity, 996 velo and a 70-meter effective damage range. It doesn't get much better than that. Vertical foregrip, max horizontal control, super important there. Extended 2 is gonna work fine if you wanted extended 3. A little bit slower, but 10 extra bullets. If that's valuable to you, go for it. Ergonomic rear grip, might as well, right? Same deal with balanced stock, and then recoil springs, even more control. So this is kind of the max recoil control setup you could use for this gun. It still takes some getting used to, but if you are good with it, it will absolutely melt. And that said, those are 10 of the best loadouts to run here in Warzone after Season 2 Reloaded. If you enjoyed the video, you found the information helpful, be sure to drop a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.